Mark, any pressure? I know you played in the World Series. You've done it all. Any pressure sitting in that seat last Friday?
Well, hello, Michael, Peter. Good to be with you guys. You know, the toughest part for me, I mean, listen, 4 hours with Don, that is the pressure cooker right there. I mean, Don he went through a rant. He started dancing around. You guys saw it. He started dancing around the studio.
I felt for you.
I was a little fearful for my safety. And, you know, I got through it. I made it through the 4 hours. But you know what? I thanked my lucky stars afterwards that I wasn't harmed during that segment.
Golf is garbage.
Now, also, because Don can't keep his mouth shut, he told me that the most excited you were, you just wanted to, you wanted to take me to task. You wanted to rip me. Did you get your rips in?
Michael, we had so much fun with you not there. I mean, listen, it's your show, but you have to understand that when the teacher's away, the kids are going to have some fun.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, we had a great time, and I said, hey, Don, I've been here an hour. I said this in the break. I said, we're not going to bag on Michael at all? Come on, man. And so he's like, yeah, you're right. So we got a few good licks in, but, you know, it was all in good fun because we love you, Michael.
I love it. I thought you did a great job. And by the way, you just dropped in a really good Don imitation.
Not bad,
that quick. Yeah. I mean, that's him. All right, let's get to it.
I try my best.
Yesterday, I mean, you know how they say in baseball, you've heard this, Mark. Every time you watch a game, you can see something you've never seen. Adrian Beltre got thrown out because he moved the on-deck circle. What'd you think about that?
One of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, and it's things like this that make players and fans want to replace umpires with computers. I'm just being honest with you here. I mean, listen, Jerry Davis is a good guy. I like him as an umpire. He was always very fair to me, and never. What is he doing? Like, what kind of bad mood are you in that in a 22-10 game with a guy that's chasing 3,000 hits, one of the most respected players in all of baseball, and Adrian Beltre, Adrian's trying to have fun with you. He's trying to keep the game, livable and watchable for you for the next inning and a half, and you throw him out? Are you kidding me? It was absolutely ridiculous.
It's interesting to me because I remember, just from the Yankees, Derek Jeter was never in the on-deck circle. Guys are never in the on-deck circle. Why would he pick that fight with a guy, as you said, who's on the precipice of 3,000 hits?
You're exactly right. And the thing about that on-deck circle, the umpires don't determine that. The grounds crew does. We move it all the time. I mean, we'll move it based on, hey, if the owner's box is in the way of the on-deck circle, hey, guys, move that on-deck circle over because the owner can't see home plate. I mean, that kind of stuff happens all the time. So this, to me, is just very bizarre, and Jerry really owes Adrian Beltre, the Texas Rangers, and their fans an apology because there's no need for stuff like that.
Let's move on to the Dennis Eckersley stuff with the Red Sox because I feel very, very strongly about this. And Mark, full disclosure, I've only been around the Yankees my entire professional career. So I don't know how it's done with other teams. And the Yes Network I've been a TV announcer for 16 years now. And I'm sure some players don't like some stuff that I've said, but I've never had a confrontation. Now, that's just me, a big oaf that wasn't good enough to play the game. Dennis Eckersley is in a Hall of Fame. And he's getting shouted down by David Price and other members of the Red Sox on the tarmac by the team plane. What's going on?
This is bad for the Red Sox. It really is. And I don't know what David Price is doing. He is being paid very handsomely to pitch right now average baseball. And if I'm David Price, I would be a perfect gentleman citizen off the field right now. I mean, the last thing that David Price wants to do is make headlines off of the field because he's being a jerk. And listen, you, Joel Sherman, George King, Kevin Kernan, I'll list the hundreds of guys that have covered me over the Yankees over my 8 years there, have been critical of me at some point. Did I deserve it most of the time? Absolutely. Like, why are we as athletes surprised when we struggle and members of the media have to mention that we struggle or maybe break down why we think we're struggling? This is silly to me that the Red Sox are that thin-skinned that a Hall of Famer like Eckersley that is being paid to give his opinions on why he thinks players are struggling, why they're so thin-skinned and they can't just get past it. I think it shows a lot about the leadership in that clubhouse. I'm not saying that there's a lack of leadership, but I think they need to get their priorities in order and say, hey, listen, guys, we're the best team in this division. Let's forget about what any media member, forget if he's a Hall of Famer or not. Let's forget about the media. We should assume that the media is going to blast us every day and go out and play our game.
Now, I'm wondering, Mark, as a player on a team, now when you say the media, you know, TV is media, but it's different than the press, and especially if it's the home team's broadcast. Do players expect the announcers to be homers and not criticize them?
You know, it's funny. When I was playing, I expected them to be more, but now that I'm on the other side of it, it took me a week to realize that you guys have a job to do. I mean, your job is not to make me feel good when I'm 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Like, that's not your job. Your job is to cover the game, be objective as objective as possible, and go out there and cover the game. And so as a player, when we watch the Yes Network and you might be critical, or Paul O'Neill or whoever's critical of us, we go, oh, man, that stinks. They're being critical of us. Then you sit back and look at it and go, what else are they supposed to do? Are you just supposed to, like, sugarcoat every single thing that happens in a game? You'd lose credibility with fans. You'd lose credibility with your network, and you probably wouldn't have a job for very long.
I always thought, Mark, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, that the biggest culprits are the spouses or girlfriends, because then it becomes a game of telephone. During games, there's no way you're hearing what I'm saying. So you're hearing it secondhand, and you might go back and listen later. But, I mean, something that I might have said that was benign might be relayed to Mark Teixeira. Well, he said you stink. Do you think that's an issue?
Yes, it's an issue, and I'll extend that to family and friends. It's not just wives and girlfriends. But listen, when I come home from a game, and I mean, my wife was never like this. I mean, we kind of had an agreement. Hey, when I come home, I'm going to be dad and husband. I don't want to talk about what Michael Kay said about me on the air. I don't care. You know, if I hit a home run in the game, I'm just going to assume that he said something good about me. If I made an error or struck out in a big situation, I'm going to assume he said something bad about me. So I don't need to hear the play-by-play. And I think the problem is when you go home and it's your buddy or it's your dad or your girlfriend or your wife says, man, I can't believe Michael Kay's ripping you. And you go, well, what did he say? Oh, he said this, he said that, he said that. And then I never even heard you say these things. I'm getting it secondhand. I know that she's upset or he's upset. And now all of a sudden, for no good reason at all, I have a bad relationship with a member of the media. And it just makes my job more difficult. When I was struggling as a player, the best thing I could do was be good to the media. It was very hard, but that was the best thing I could do, is because I don't want any type of controversy off the field.
Did it bother you more, Mark, when a Michael Kay or a John Sterling criticized you, or a player? Because the Red Sox are saying he doesn't remember how tough it is to be a player. That's what they're taking offense to with Eckersley. So did it bother you when a neophyte that didn't play the game was critical, or like if a Paul O'Neill or a Ken Singleton was critical?
It's tougher when a player, absolutely. When an ex-player criticizes you, it's much more difficult, because there's this fraternity that you just expect. Like, I go back to Georgia Tech, and I expect just every alumni from the last 100 years to be my friend. Well, that's just not the way it is. That's not the way life is. And so, you go to a ballpark, and whether you are an ex-player, a current player, part of the family, you feel like, hey, we're family. You need to take care of me. But as soon as I grab a microphone or grab a pen, we're not family anymore. I'm not going to take shots at you, for no reason. But if I have to objectively follow the game and report on what I'm seeing, I'm going to tell you exactly what I see. If I think I see a guy that's out of shape, I'm going to say I think he's out of shape. And you need to prove to me one way or another on the field that I'm wrong by your play. That's what it boils down to. I've told guys for years, whether it's a writer or a TV personality, I say, guys, when I'm playing well, everything I'm doing is right. Everything I'm doing on the field, off the field, it doesn't matter. Eat cheeseburgers and pizza all day long. As long as I'm hitting home runs, everything's great. If I'm struggling, all bets are off. Hey, what's he doing off the field? What's his diet like? Is he working hard enough? Is he in the cage enough? Whatever. So that's just the fact of the matter, that every ball player has to understand that.
One final thing on this, Mark, before we move on. We're talking to Mark Teixeira's weekly segment on the show. In your travels through Anaheim, Atlanta, Texas, and the Yankees, did you ever want to talk, and did you ever talk with an analyst from television or radio and say, why are you saying this, and let's talk about this?
You know what? Not very much. You know what? I think it was maybe once or twice, and it wasn't ever on you're ripping me on something. It's,
right.
Hey, man, you got to back off, my personal space. Hey, I like you, but I got a job to do. So it was actually, I tried to be really nice to guys, but then they hang around your locker. It's more writers, because TV guys, you know how TV is. It's boom, boom, boom. It's 5 seconds here, 30 seconds there. You're looking for quick sound bites. But some of those writers would kind of just hang out, and I'm like, hey, dude, I like you, but I got a job to do. So either ask me a real question that you're going to put in the paper, or leave me alone. So I think that was probably the only time, and I had that conversation 2 or 3 times in 14 years.
Is Sonny Gray the missing piece for the Yankees, and should they give up a big a youth package for him?
He is a big piece to where they want to go, and I would get rid of I would give up one of their top prospects.
Really? Wow.
I would give up Florial. I would give up Mateo. Not their top guys. Not Torres. Maybe not Sheffield, Adams. There's 2 or 3 guys that the front office, Brian Cashman and his front offices are looking at and saying, you know what? These guys are going to be future All-Stars. If you're going to be a future All-Star, you're off the table, because I think, I want to build something for the next 6 years, and this guy's going to be a part of that. If you're a fringe guy, if you're a piece that maybe we have, you're blocked in the outfield, you're blocked at shortstop, and you have value, make the trade, because it is a trade. You have to give up something to get something. And Sonny Gray, a guy like Sonny Gray, I like more than a 2-month rental, because he has 2 years of control. The Yankees don't win at all this year. It could still be a great trade, because it gets them closer in 2018 and 2019 to being a team that can contend for a World Series.
There's an old sports adage that I've always disagreed with. Now, you played the game, and maybe you feel differently. I love when people say, well, you should never lose a job because of an injury. Well, if somebody gets injured and then, Michael Jordan takes over and is great, why should you get your job back? So that leads me to Clint Frazier and Aaron Hicks. And Aaron Hicks certainly had a great season until he got hurt. What do you do? And add in the Jacoby Ellsbury factor, Mark. What do you do?
So I think you give Hicks his job back. Unless you can move Ellsbury, the Yankees have no choice. And the reason I say they have no choice is, if you have the starting outfield of Gardner, Hicks, and Judge, those guys are playing almost every day. Yeah, right. You can give Gardner a day off here and there. He's probably going to need it, just being an older player, and he wears down a little bit as the year goes on. But a healthy Brett Gardner is a top 3 outfielder. Hicks has shown this year that he can be an impact player, and Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. So where is Frazier really going to play? You don't want him playing once a week. You don't want him kind of wasting away that if you do have a need for him late in the season, someone gets hurt. He's only had 10 at-bats in the last month, whatever it might be. So it's just a very tough situation if you can't move Ellsbury. But I think Clint Frazier is a great fallback option if something happens to one of their other outfielders. And we know baseball's a game of attrition now more than ever. So someone's going to get hurt, and Clint Frazier might get his second opportunity in August or September.
Mark, I'll put you on the spot here. I know that you guys were teammates, and at one point you had the same agent as well. What has happened to Jacoby Ellsbury? Because he used to be an unbelievable player.
Yeah, you know what? I think players like Jacoby, he's an amazing athlete. And there are certain just pure athletic guys that can have stretches of brilliance because of what they can do. You know, they do things on the field that you don't see. I mean, you know, in his big year in 2011, he was hitting home runs and hitting triples and stealing bases and making Gold Glove plays. He was Ken Griffey Jr. You know, as you get older, if you can't play baseball, meaning having that baseball IQ to make adjustments at the plate, having that baseball IQ to take your chances. The last few years of my career, when I was hurt and I was struggling, I took a lot more chances at the plate because that's how I had to make adjustments. You know, I had to try to be a little smarter. I had to watch a little bit more video and maybe sit on a curveball here and there. And I think Jacoby, you know, as he's gotten older, his athletic ability doesn't play up as much as it used to. So I would really like to see him make some more adjustments because, you know, he hasn't been what the Yankees signed on for. They signed on for the dynamic, game-changing athlete, and he really hasn't been that way.
All right, so Hicks is going to start a rehab assignment at the end of this homestand, so it's still a long way away. The end of the homestand is next Wednesday. So let's say it takes 2 weeks. So you're in the middle of August at that point, and then you have 2 weeks to play for, two weeks to play with until you expand to 40. And Frazier has played well, and he might be a good guy off the bench. So you can't keep Frazier, Ellsbury, and Hicks. One of them has to go, and the easy move, as you said, would be to send down Frazier. But the easier move would be to create an injury. How often does that happen, Mark, and were you ever asked to create an injury?
I was never asked. It happens, though. It definitely happens. You know, if Jacoby says that he's feeling some ill effects from his concussion, which he's alluded to,
right.
Say, hey, man, 2 weeks, clear your head. I'm a big believer. Sometimes the clearing the head DL stint is great. You see tons of pitchers take them because it accomplishes a lot of things. Your arm, whether your arm is hurt or not, 2 weeks off for a pitcher in the middle of a long season isn't a bad thing at all. You get away from the game for a little bit. You work on some things in the bullpen. Sometimes all it takes is one little mechanical adjustment in the bullpen. Maybe Ellsbury can figure that out in the cage. You know, maybe we say, hey, 2 weeks, you're just going to take batting practice and cage work. And it might be one little thing that him and Alan Cockrell or Marcus Thames, the hitting coaches, can look at and say, hey, Jacoby, this is what you were doing when you were going well. This is what I see now. You don't have to worry about it in a game. Work on it in the cage and in batting practice for 2 weeks. It's not a crazy idea, Michael. And you do have a lot of crazy ideas. But this one is not crazy. This one is not crazy.
We're talking with Mark Teixeira, his weekly spot on the show. A couple of text messages before we let you go. From Patrick Santoro, Mark. He said, who was the most intimidating pitcher you ever faced?
Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens scared the heck out of me. He really did.
Why, because you thought he was nuts?
Well, he is nuts, and he's a guy that if you took a swing that he didn't like, or you're a rookie who got really comfortable in the box, he was going to throw one at your head. And he never did it to me, but just the look that I know it's possible, he was very intimidating up there. And he was huge. He was a huge guy. When I first saw him at Yankee Stadium, I was a 22-year-old rookie in Texas. I said, oh, my gosh, I can't believe I'm facing Roger Clemens, and he might hit me.
Mark from Melville wants to know, what was the most important or constructive thing a coach ever told you?
Man, I think the best piece of advice I ever got was my very first hitting coach, Rudy Jaramillo in Texas, who's still a good friend of mine to this day, was a big part of my success as a player during my career. When I first signed out of Georgia Tech with the Rangers, I came to Arlington and I worked with him for a couple weeks in the winter, and he said, Tex, you're here for a reason. I'm not going to try to change you, but I'm going to try to make you the best Mark Teixeira you can be. So what that kind of told me was, I have the base that I need. Don't lose faith in the talent that I have. Don't lose trust that I can get the job done. Just be the best version of you can be. And I think that's a great piece of advice for young players.